Welcome to a new episode of Melt. I'm Ritvika Gupta shooting from home. Earlier this year, former media baron and ex-chief executive of Star India, Peter Mukerjea, published his memoir, Starstruck: Confessions of a TV Executive. The book is presented as a recollection of his experiences in the satellite television industry in India and the changes it has gone through over the years. Peter Mukerjea is considered one of the most successful media executives in India. His decade-long stint heading Star India transformed India's TV industry. To find out more about the book and his perception of the media industry today, Anant Rangaswami, editor of Melt, will be in conversation with the man himself. Let's get ready to melt with Peter Mukerjea.
Hello, Peter.
Hello, Anand. How are you?
Good to see you, Peter.
Good to see you too.
So, this is an interview that should have been done earlier when your book was new. But we'll talk a little bit about the book and we'll talk a lot more about media. So, tell me, for those who haven't bought your book yet, why should they buy the book?
Well, I think it's a very simple question. One is it's a great book to read. It's got some, I think, really funny stories in there, which will kind of take people back and walk them down memory lane. I think it'll be a useful book for people who are students of media and communication to kind of, maybe glean a few things out of it in terms of how to, manage their own affairs and business life, etc.
So, Peter, in addition to students of media, what about people in middle management of media or in marketing companies? Give me reasons why they should buy your book.
Well, look, to be honest with you, I think any book that is of relevance to one's professional or personal life is something one ought to read. And now whether you want to kind of take something out of it at the end of it is really dependent on how you kind of perceive it and how much of that is relevant to one. But the way I see it, it's relevant to people getting into the media business at a very young and, at a junior level, people who are running companies in the media business or in any business, as a matter of fact, doesn't have to be media. And I've had comments from so many friends of mine who are from other industries who said to me, look, this is just not about media. It's called Starstruck because of, the relevance to Star and stuff like that. But in many ways, it's connected to, human relations. It's connected to human resources. It's connected to, managing people, managing lots of things. So I think, it is relevant from that point of view for a variety of, individuals.
Right. So now let's come to perhaps what is going to be the content of another book, or maybe a lecture, or maybe a seminar that you might do. So tell me, what is the future of media as you see it? Peter, you've always been perhaps ahead of the curve a bit. So tell me, what is the future? What is going to happen to TV? What is going to happen to OTT? Is it going to be as easy for OTT as they think it is? So give me your views, your blue sky thinking.
Wow, this is real crystal ball gazing stuff. But let me say, I think, first of all, let's talk about broadcast media, which is, something that I've kind of cut my teeth on and spent a long time on. I think the future there in India, and I'm talking about this marketplace, is still extremely bright, so long as we do two or three things to keep it on course. One is we've got to hire good people, okay? And when I say good people, I mean people who are, who are bright, people who are passionate, and people who are, genuinely hardworking. Problem I find right now, and we can talk about the problem later on in more detail, but is that, the quality of, individuals in various media companies is getting shallower and shallower by the day, because I think other companies, other industries are grabbing the bright ones. Number two, I think apart from hiring good people, I think they then need to be trained. I don't think we as a business are investing enough in training our, the people that work for us. They're coming in at a lower standard than they should be. They should be at a higher standard. But despite that, they are not being trained. Also, I would say, in reality, the correct approach for media companies going forward, broadcast media, is really to try and shrink down the duration of shows. Because I think what people are tending to do is watch shorter duration content. So, if you talk to a 12, 13, 14-year-old, today they will tell you that, they fast forward, a 45-minute episode of, any OTT show on something like Netflix, for instance. And that's quite amazing, because what is actually happening is that, television has geared itself to producing 1-hour shows or 48-minute shows, as it happens. Those 48-minute shows are being, when you watch it as a replay, or you watch it at your own time, you're fast forwarding stuff which is incredibly dull. So if broadcast media has to compete, they have to be more relevant to young people. Right. So I think these are the key three things that need to happen as far as the future of broadcast media in this country. Of course, what's going to happen in the future with regard to OTT platforms, I think they've got as good a future as they've always had until recently. There's some regulatory issues that have come about, but I see that as being just a regular speed bump. I mean, I don't think it's going to change things too much. People will adapt, and I don't see why there should not be any regulatory control, because after all, the same people are producing movies which have to go through a censor board and certification process. So the same should apply to OTT platforms for whatever else they produce for viewers. So I think really the regulatory part is really not something we need to spend too much time worrying about. I mean, it's something that's going to happen, and producers got to be towing the line.
Right. We go back to your statement that broadcast has got a good future in India. So explain to me why you think broadcast. There are two aspects to it. One is the viewership aspect. One is the revenue aspect, and perhaps the third, the distribution aspect. So how do you break these three down and still say that broadcast has got a good future?
Well, I say they have a good future because, first of all, as I said earlier, if you have bright people working in there, right, they will be innovative. They will innovate to continue to exist. If they don't, then of course that it will be their downfall. But it's something that can very easily be prevented as we speak. In India, penetration of television is still not yet anywhere near the high 90s, which means that there are still an awful lot of people who do not have a TV set at home, even though in terms of hierarchy of purchase, they would probably want one, but they don't have one. Now, whether it's a question of affordability or not having, electric supply or whatever, there is still an opportunity for immense growth. Now, I think it's somewhere in the region of about 60 or 70%, which means that there's still a huge number of homes that will acquire a television set, which means more viewership overall, larger reach. And so I don't think there's too many countries in the world today where, penetration of television is quite as at the same level as, it is in India at the moment. So I think, broadly speaking, I think future is bright. There is a lot more money being invested in content development into broadcast media than before. And I think that's another good reason why quality of content will improve, so long as they get it down, narrow it down to a duration time of about maybe 10, 12, 13, 14 minutes, no longer than that. It's a kind of Twitterization of content, if that's a phrase that makes any sense. I think people are used to kind of chucking everything into X number of digits on a message, and the same thing applies to broadcast media.
So what about the revenue side?
Look, the revenue follows what I would call eyeballs. There's no two ways about it. I mean, and if eyeballs are, visible to an advertiser, the revenue will come. I mean, the reason revenue is in short supply right now is because the quality of the product isn't as good as it ought to be, which is why there's not enough eyeballs. So you've got to get the eyeballs up, and you'll get revenue. I mean, it's a commonsensical thing.
Right. One of the challenges in India is, you spoke about headroom for penetration and still room for growth.
Yeah.
But we still, the revenue comes per rating point. It doesn't come for the absolute number of viewers. So imagine your viewership goes up all the way to 90%, but your revenue may not. That's one of the challenges in Indian.
But Anand, that's a discussion which really needs to happen between seller and buyer. I'll give you an example. When we were doing television sales back in the day, there were no ratings. I mean, Star had 0 ratings. Doordarshan had 100, in comparison. And yet we were able to generate revenue. Now, you could ask me, how was that? How did that happen? Well, as I just said, I think you've got to have good quality people at the front end who are talking to buyers and convincing them that it is, a good investment that they're making. Right now, the quality of people, I'm sorry to say, is really appalling. You ask somebody to put a sentence together they can barely do that. Sorry, obviously other industries are picking up all the bright guys and, all the bright people. So broadcast media is lagging behind on that as well. So if you're getting rubbish through the door in terms of people who you're hiring, then surely you're not expecting them to go out and get, keep your business afloat by asking them to do a particular kind of job.
Right.
I mean, I can't imagine that a number of those people who are currently at the sales end of broadcast, they wouldn't get a job at, back in the day of Star, month of Sundays.
So what about the growth of digital? How is that going to affect broadcast, and how is that going to affect?
Look, they are complementary. There was a time, I don't know if you recall this, when people would say that, look, with the emergence of satellite broadcast like Tata Sky and Dish and so on, that would be the end of the cable business. Well, it's not been so. Cable business has continued to grow, as has, digital broadcast. So I think the same will happen here. I think, broadcast television will need to improve its game, clearly. And so will, and we'll have to compete. Otherwise, it's just going to be shutters down.
So tell me, how are you consuming media? How much of it is digital? How much of it is analog? And how much of it is broadcast, and so on and so forth? What is it?
Well, look, I'll tell you what. My media consumption right now is I'm still trying to grapple with some of these things, but I would say that I spend very little time watching OTT content. I'm just not. I don't have enough hours in the day to allow me to do that. I watch live sport as and when it's possible. The only thing I don't like watching episodic, content on, whether it's Netflix or whatever, unless it's incredibly good. Something like Narcos is fabulous, right? It keeps you connected right the way through. But the rest of the stuff is so dull. It's really unimaginative. And I'd far rather watch a movie which is a couple of hours, and I know that's the end of it, rather than have to kind of stay up all night and keep going episode after episode.
So is there a crisis of content for all the platforms, whether it's broadcast or OTT and so on and so on?
Absolutely. I think, when I said bright people into the business, it doesn't just necessarily mean people who are on the sales side of the business. It really means, content people as well. And of course, there are some very, very bright people in the business today. And they need to continue to invest in that. And when you compare, and I got to say, there are only one or two, shows that I would say stand the test of time when it comes to being compared with stuff that is being produced internationally. We need to be winning more global awards. I think we tend to look very much inwards and say, okay, we've got to show, which has won the best show on OTT in the Indian marketplace. That's fine. Which is obviously somebody's got to win, and that's excellent. However, I think you've got to really then compare that with how does it stack up internationally. Is it going to win an Emmy award? Which is really what the goalposts we've got to set ourselves. Set ourselves up for.
Right. So, what is the starting point for a broadcast company to have the ambition and want to achieve the ambition of winning at the Emmys or whatever it might be?
Well, look, I'm not a guru on that kind of thing, but what I would say is that you've got to really look at whatever you're looking to produce and you're investing money in it. Either your levels of investment need to go up in order to be able to buy in, better talent, better writers, better, production values. And I think those will ultimately deliver you results which will get you to go and receive an award at a award show globally. I think we tend to pat ourselves on the back about what is happening, within the country, which is of course understandable. But you've got to compete internationally in order to be able to kind of, be out there and have, people looking at shows that are produced here and then adapting them to productions elsewhere in the world.
Right. So,
I'm sorry to go back to this, but and it sounds like I'm kind of laboring the point here, but we've got to hire better people, and that's a really key element of what is the first step in terms of achieving those goals of being internationally competitive.
Right, and let me sort of provoke you here. I would argue that almost every broadcast company or OTT company wants the finest programming, but it's chicken and egg. If we spend a couple of $1 million per episode, say like Narcos might have done, there's no way you can write the money to justify that.
Well, see, I think you can. I think you can write the money if you have really good content, because you then sell that content globally. You don't sell it only into the Indian marketplace.
Right.
And I think, you've got to have people who are out there globally selling that content to people in South America or in the United States or wherever it is. But that's not happening. And what is it about a show that comes out of the US that is so attractive and they write X amount of money? How is it that we're not able to do that? That's a pretty basic question that anybody running a company with that mission ought to be asking their people.
So I'm asking you, so how is it that we can't?
Well, as I said, you've got to hire good talent. If you don't do that, you're not going to be competitive. It's a combination. You've got to hire the talent, give them the freedom to kind of create stuff, have a good team of people going out there and kind of religiously selling that. And that's the combination. I mean, there is no formula that kind of, that can kind of change the basic set of ingredients.
Right. Peter, one of the challenges that all broadcast companies have in India, they're listed companies answerable to the stock market, and it brings about a sort of view of short-termism as opposed to long-termism. Yeah. So they can't take a bad P&L for 1 year, bad balance sheet. How do you balance that? You've been reporting to a board. How do you balance the short-termism and the long-termism?
What is management? Management, to me, as a definition of the word, is the creation of hope for a better tomorrow, and that's really what it kind of gets sparked from. And at all these levels, people need to be convincing the shareholders, convincing their boards that, look, if our goal has to be able to be globally competitive. And in order to do that, we need to do A, B, C, right? In order to do that A, B, and C, we need to be able to, put in the right levels of investment and expect a return. It's not going to be overnight, and that's the name of this media business. You don't get it overnight. You go out and it's no different to oil exploration in many ways. where you drill down and you find nothing. It costs you a lot of money to go down there and drill, and when you do, then it's bonanza time.
Okay, so much for this conversation about the future, Peter. Now, tell me, what's the next book? Because I hear you're writing another book. So,
well, I'm writing two of them actually, to be honest. But and they are about my more recent past and some of the experiences that I've had, over the last past 5 or 6 years. But I think those will be, equally enjoyable. They'll be revealing. They'll be very. I think they'll be very interesting. And I really hope that at some point, each of these gets turned into some kind of TV content, because I think it the way I'm kind of trying to write it is that it is designed to be exactly that. I'm not trying to say that, and there are people who kind of said to me, listen, we would love to do this, we'd love to do that. It's too early yet. I'm not yet. I'm probably halfway through both of those, and it's probably going to be another year or two before they get finished. But it's a new pastime of mine, which is to write, and being living in Goa currently is in many ways well suited to that.
Fantastic, because I've learned a lot from your book, and I've seen how you went through the hoops. So thank you so much, Peter, for this conversation, and look forward to meeting you again, having a coffee, and sooner rather than later.
I look forward to that, Anant, and thank you very much. I really enjoyed this conversation. As soon as these other two books are out, I'll let you know. But I got to say one thing, and just say thank you for nudging me many, many moons ago to actually write Starstruck. If it wasn't for you doing that piece of nudging time and again, it wouldn't have happened. So, and I got to tell you personally and on air, thank you for that.
Thank you, Peter.
And that was Peter Mukerjea providing ample food for thought about the future of the Indian media industry. He is now presenting the Mel cheat sheet. Media companies today need to hire and train the right talents. Broadcast media needs to be more relevant to young people. A lot more money is being invested in content today. And that's a wrap on this episode of Melt. You can follow us on social media. Our handle is Ready to Melt. And stay updated with all that's happening in the world of advertising and marketing with our daily Melt update on our website, readytomelt.com. I shall see you next week, same time, same place. Goodbye.